And we are back with yet another Freewell ND filter video, but this time is for the DJI Avata 2. So in this video, I'm going to show you why it's so important that you use ND filters when you're trying to capture cinematic footage with your FPV drone. And if you are new to ND filters, I'll share with you the settings I personally use, and hopefully it'll help you when you're trying to capture some amazing footage. So let's begin. Alright, so if you are new to this channel and you like drone and other tech reviews, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that notification bell for future content. So the people over at Freewell sent out these filter packs to me so I can test out on my DJI Avata 2. Now, I'm no stranger to Freewell filters. I've been purchasing Freewell filters for the past several years, and a lot of them have been sent to me by Freewell, but they have no influence over the content of this video. And even with my other cameras, such as my mirrorless camera here and also my action cameras, I purchased my own Freewell filters because I know you get very good quality for the price. Now, the packs I have here consist of the standard 4-day pack, an ultraviolet and polarizing filter. So inside the standard 4-pack, it comes with a ND8, an ND16, an ND32, and an ND64. And the higher the number, the darker the filter is. And if you are new to ND filters, ND stands for neutral density, and all they are dark pieces of glass that reduces the amount of light that enter in through the lens and onto your sensor, which allows you to reduce your shutter speed to get that smooth motion blur. Now, the reason why it's so important for you to use ND filters on your FPV drone is because you're flying close to objects. Now, you're flying low, you're flying close to the ground, you're flying through gaps, you're flying through tight spaces, and you want that natural motion blur. The motion blur that our eyes are, accustomed to. Otherwise, with your camera set to automatic settings, your camera will automatically adjust for the exposure and set a higher shutter speed, which will give you a more jittery or digital look to your footage. So the DJI Avata 2 has a great camera on it. Now, I'm going to show you why it's so important that you use ND filters. Now, on the left, I'm recording in automatic settings, and then on the right, I'm using an ND filter and recording with manual settings. And as you can see with the automatic settings, your image looks very digital and it looks very sharp. And on the right, it looks a little smoother and you can see the motion blur. And as we're passing by objects and moving through gaps, you can notice that the image looks a little bit more pleasing and more natural to the human eye. Also, another thing you may notice is that it takes away that digital sharpness that you get when you're recording on the camera in automatic settings. Now, there is a setting in the app that allows you to reduce the sharpness in camera as you're recording. Now, this is a setting that I used after I recorded this footage, So in this footage, it's a little sharp. However, the ND filter kind of reduced the sharpness a little. I was also sent a PL filter, which is a polarizing lens. Now this is not an ND filter, but what it does is reduces the reflections off of shiny surfaces, such as glass or water. And because it reduces the shininess and reflections off of objects, it helped boost the saturation in colors. And finally, I was also sent a UV filter, which reduces the UV rays going into the camera. Basically what I use this for is for an added layer of protection on my camera and to protect it from scratches or whenever I crash or something like that. Now I'd rather sacrifice this lens than to sacrifice my camera lens when I'm involved in a crash. To install these filters is pretty simple. Just remember to clean off your filters both inside and out before you place it on the camera. And then align the filter with the bottom part of the camera and use the top tab to snap it into place. And with all the Freewell filters, they come packaged very well. That's one thing with Freewell, they package their merchandise pretty well. And also the filters themselves come with quality glass and they don't cost that much. And if you are interested in purchasing a pack of these, I'll leave a link in the description below so you can go ahead and check them out. Now, ND filters can help you get some great, amazing cinematic footage, but it all starts with your camera settings. Now, when setting up your camera to use ND filters, what we use is called the 180-degree shutter rule. Now, there's plenty of videos out there explaining in detail what the 180-degree shutter rule is, but basically what it is setting your shutter speed twice or double what your frame rate is. So for example, if you're filming in 24 frames per second, you want to set your shutter speed to 1/48th of a second or 1/50th of a second. And if you're filming in 30 frames per second, you want to set your shutter speed to 1/60th of a second. All right, so let's take a look at the settings I personally use. If you are new to this, hopefully this helps guide you in the right direction when you're setting up your camera. All right, so to start off, when I'm filming cinematic footage, I always like to use manual mode, manual settings. My ISO is set to automatic with a maximum of 200. My shutter speed is at 1/100, and as you can see, I'm filming in 4K 50 frames per second, so 1/100 is double the frame rate, which is 180-degree shutter rule. I like to film in the 4:3 aspect ratio, and I'm filming, my camera field of view is going to be wide, and like I said, my ISO is capped at 200, and image stabilization is off because I will be stabilizing, or I stabilize all my footage in GyroFlow. I just like to look at it better. And one important thing, I like to record in D-Log-M, which gives you a little bit more dynamic range when you're editing your footage. It preserves the highlights and also the shadows and gives you the flexibility of adjusting them in post. And with all these settings set up for the 180-degree shutter rule, you see that the image is overexposed and blown out. But when you add an ND filter, and I'm using an ND 16, you can see that the exposure is evened out and you get a more pleasurable image. Now, as you notice, the ISO was set to auto. However, it automatically bumped up to 200 once I put the ND filter on here. Now, your ideal ISO when you're filming cinematic footage is 100. However, you know, if you bump it up to 200 or maybe 400, that should be acceptable. Any higher than that, you will get like a graininess to your footage. Now I have it set to 200 to adjust for any shadows or anything that I might fly through. Also, when it does adjust, I don't want to make it too noticeable when the exposure changes. Also, another thing you can do is go into your advanced settings and adjust the sharpness. I have it down to -1 because usually out of camera, the image is a little bit too sharp. Okay, so choosing the right ND filter all depends on the lighting conditions and the look that you're going for. All right, so right now it's around between 8:30 and 9 o'clock in the morning, and I had to use an ND8 when filming some of my cinematic footage. But usually on a bright sunny day, I usually go with an ND16 to an ND32, and on cloudy days, I'll go with an ND8 to an ND16. So overall, it's all about experimenting and finding the right balance. So here are some quick tips to get the best results when you're using your ND filters. Make sure you plan your shots. Know the lighting conditions and choose the correct ND filter. Check your camera settings. Make sure you set your camera before you take off. And like I mentioned earlier, experiment. Don't be afraid to try different settings or different ND filters to find out what works best for you. And finally, clean your filters. Clean them both inside and out before you put them on your camera. All right, so that's it for this video. If you found this useful and enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Also, if you like drone and other tech reviews, tips, tricks, and tutorials, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that notification bell for future content. And I'll see you on the next video. Peace.